That is totally my real name, I promise. This is a lot like a bar. The lights go down, the stage is set, it's time to, the show's about to begin. A really good bartender can take an audience and kind of convey a story. They write a story together as they're sitting there in front of the bar. It's a really cool process if you kind of think about it. My name is Nico Martini, and today we are going to talk about going beyond the Vodka Tonic. My associate here is Lucky Campbell. He runs a bar, or owns a bar, in Dallas called Parliament. It's one of the most innovative bars in the entire region. It's very cool. Lucky is going to be working on a few cocktails while I'm talking, so Lucky, what do we have going on?
Thank you, Nico. We're going to go from very old to very new, starting with a classic rye old-fashioned, then we're going to use some modern techniques and do a smoked applewood old-fashioned, and then we're going to do some molecular techniques and do a reconstructed champagne cocktail.
Awesome. Sounds good. So I've always been fascinated by bartenders. Bartenders, according to Charlotte Voicey, bartenders were pretty much rock stars of their community. They were the most important people of their town. See, bartenders used to be civic royalty. As a kid, I used to want to be a chef, and I think that's part of the reason why I was really interested in the whole bartender thing. But there was also this one commercial that I kept hearing every time I was in school.
Red snapper, kamikaze, Long Island iced tea, black Russian fuzzy navel, and a sex on the beach. Margarita, Bloody Mary.
Yeah, I totally see some knowing nods out there right now. And kind of a side note, that's for 1-800-BARTEND, by the way, which I think is defunct. I'm not sure. Side note, I think they countrified that up for everybody in the Dallas market. But I remember hearing this thing, and I was thinking, what are these? How do you make these? And it was fascinating to me that it was somebody's job to actually make all of these cocktails. And so, things happen. I never wound up being a bartender. But 3 years ago, my brother-in-law came to me and said, hey, can you help me out with my website? CocktailEnthusiast.com. It's a very good website. If what I'm talking about sounds interesting, please go check it out. Very well written. It's very cool. Cocktail Enthusiast and working with Kevin allowed me to become friends with some of the best bartenders in the country, allowed me to have some of the best drinks on the planet. And every time I would go to a new city, I would make sure I would check out that particular cocktail scene. And about probably 3 years ago, my life was going to completely change based on one random trip to Los Angeles. I went to this place called Harvard and Stone. According to Nicole A. on Yelp, Harvard and Stone is located in a semi-shady area, and there was a line like super long, and a homeless man was screaming obscenities in my general direction. Which sounded, of course, like a place I wanted to go to. So you walk into Harvard and Stone, and it is this kind of typical sort of feeling Hollywood dive bar. It's dark, loud, appropriately grimy, full of hipsters. And it's also a live music venue. But in the back, there's this magical place called the R&D Bar, where they serve some of the best cocktails in all of Southern California. And all of a sudden, I thought to myself, maybe this is how it's going to be. Maybe it doesn't matter if I'm in a Hollywood hipster music venue or if I'm in an Applebee's. Maybe everybody's going to end up having these great cocktails. So, what is a cocktail? Why has there been a resurgence of cocktails? What happened? Why'd they go away? A cocktail, according to this Balancing Colombian repository, is a stimulating liquor composed of spirits of any kind, sugar, water, and bitters. For those of you who've done the cocktail thing before, sugar, water, and bitters sounds a lot like an old-fashioned. So, if you order an old-fashioned today, you're not going to get the original old-fashioned, which was invented by Jerry Thomas. It was originally called a whiskey cocktail. It was shaken and strained into a wine glass. Today's old-fashioned looks a lot more like this. Thank you, sir.
So before the word cocktail, the whiskey cocktail, Jerry Thomas's whiskey cocktail, aka the old-fashioned, was a style of drink known as a bittered sling. It was only when bartenders started adding additional flavors to their bittered slings that their guests started asking for theirs to be made old-fashioned.
There you go. Sorry, here is a picture of a typical old-fashioned. Jerry Thomas is considered the godfather of the American cocktail movement. And when he was around in the late 1800s, he was the first one to sort of start writing down these recipes. His heyday was the Baroque age. That quickly shifted into the golden age of cocktails, and the game changer, ice. Because before ice, bartenders didn't really have a lot of tools that they were able to work with. With ice came things like picks. You had picks, you had straws to make sure people weren't hitting their teeth, you had axes, you had, that led to people creating these strainers and shakers and strainers, and that led to getting different types of rum that were coming out of Cuba. There was this rise in vermouth, and all of a sudden we are sitting in the middle of this huge, burgeoning cocktail scene in America, and then suddenly, screeching halt, the U.S. is voted dry by the 18th Amendment. The manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within, the importation thereof into, or the exportation thereof from the United States for beverage purposes is hereby prohibited. Prohibition has begun. So, recipes, gone. Bar technique, gone. Bartenders, gone. The good ones moved on to Europe or to Cuba. Even some of the instruments were completely disappeared because of this prohibition. But the most impactful thing that happened because of this was a shift in the way that Americans consumed booze. See, bars became speakeasies, and nobody went to a speakeasy. Nobody went down some shady back hallway, gave some dude a password, went into this bar, paid an enormous amount of money for one drink. Speakeasies were where you went to get drunk, period. The other thing that happened because of Prohibition was a complete disregard for all of the parameters that had been set in distilling. And over 10,000 Americans died because of the effects of poorly made and illegal liquor. Thankfully, FDR came along and said, hey, I'll get rid of Prohibition, just elect me. And finally, Prohibition goes away, and everyone rejoiced. But the problem is the damage was already done. What happened after Prohibition was an era of utmost simplicity. The additional thing that happened because of Prohibition, not only were all of the bartenders gone and all of the recipes gone, there was a rise in big corporate entities taking an interest in distilling. So after 13 years, all of the artisan spirits had basically disappeared. You had 4 major companies that were making alcohol at this point. And so bartenders gone, spirits down to 4, recipes gone. We were pretty much out of options anyway. Essentially, what happened was the cocktail movement in America was completely dead for the next 50 years. Yes, in the 1950s, the pina colada came along and it was great. And yes, this 007 guy got the martini thing up and running again. But, oh, and of course, there's the 80s.
I learned a red snapper, kamikaze, Long Island iced tea, black Russian fuzzy navel, and a sex on the beach.
Which are all terrible, by the way. Don't order those. So, basically, the entire cocktail movement was completely dead until the early 90s when modern-day heroes like Dale DeGroff and Audrey Saunders started revisiting what was happening before Prohibition. They started teaching their staff that this cocktail thing was a craft, and this craft was something that you could turn into a career. They were focusing on service. They were focusing on teaching their staffs to study their history. And the bartenders started doing this as something as they could see moving forward, as opposed to something that they were doing just to kind of pay for college. So, okay, moving on. What is beyond the vodka tonic? What happens now? Where is the future of cocktails, and where are we going with this thing? There's a couple of things that are happening in cocktails as we speak right now and are going to impact it in the future. This whole cocktail thing is not a trend. This is not a fad. This is the direction that we are moving. We are in the middle of a consumption revolution, and this is a time in history where we actually care about what we put into our bodies, not only as far as food goes, but as far as drinks go. So consumers care deeply about what about the types of ingredients that are being used. We're demanding fresh ingredients, and this is going to parlay into the increased necessity for restaurants and bars to have craft cocktail menus, at least some sort of an option. A bar worth its salt can't open right now without some sort of a cocktail menu using fresh ingredients. The other thing that's going to happen is the use of technology in the way that we're approaching cocktails. So let's take a look at this right here. This is the Bangkok Daiquiri. This is from a bar called Booker and Dax in New York City. They use a technique called Nitro Muddling. So what that is, Nitro Muddling is where you use liquid nitrogen, you put Thai basil leaves into liquid nitrogen, and then you muddle it down into a powder, and then that's what you use in order to make the cocktail. That's very, very cool, the liquid nitrogen thing, but it's also a testament to our technology, the fact that we actually have Thai basil leaves in this country. This is literally the best time in history to have a cocktail because we have all of the ingredients. Anything that you can imagine, we have them at our disposal now. So, the next series of slides that I'm going to go through, these were all taken at a bar in downtown Dallas. It's called Midnight Rambler. Chad Solomon and Christy Pope are two of the most prominent molecular mixologists in the U.S. We're lucky to have them down there. And they let me into their lab to kind of show you some of the tools that they are using to create the cocktails that are on their menu. It's things like this. Here's a centrifuge. You have a refractometer. You have a separatory funnel. You have a cryovac. You have a rotary evaporator. And this is just a sample of what is in this lab. It is crazy. And the thing is, they're using all of these technologies on classic recipes. That's my favorite thing about this, is that they take the technologies that we're now accustomed to, and they harken back to pre-prohibition. They take recipes that came out of books written by Jerry Thomas, and they put tweaks on them, making them modern cocktails. It's absolutely fascinating. So with that, now we are going to, oh, sorry, I gotta show you these two. This is an edible nitro Caprina from Bar Mini in Washington, D.C. Right next to it is a popcorn air Paloma. That stuff on top literally tastes like popcorn. This is also from Bar Mini in New York City. And now, for my favorite moment in all of molecular mixology, this is my wife at the Chandelier Bar at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, enjoying oh man, I messed that up. I have to tell you about this one now. this is an In the Rocks Old Fashioned. It's at the aviary. It comes in a ball. You use that thing, you hit it, and then it fills your glass, and there you go. So, okay, back to the fun part. This next little video is my wife at the Chandelier Bar in Las Vegas. This is a drink called the Fire-Breathing Dragon, and I think you'll see why. That's a cocktail that she's having right there. There you go. And there's my commentary. She's using, it's freeze-dried raspberries are what she's got in her mouth, and you chew them until the cocktail, until you're done looking like a dragon, and then you sip your cocktail. It's one of the most fun cocktails that I've ever seen. It's awesome. If you get to Vegas, make sure you go check it out. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, this is Lucky Campbell. Now we're going to show you some of this molecular stuff that I've been talking about. So, what do we have going on other than a bunch of noise?
This machine's a little noisy, so I'm going to finish up this Angostura cotton candy, and then I will show you what we're doing here.
Beautiful.
So the molecular cocktail movement, the origins can be traced back to the first world-famous molecular restaurant in Spain called El Bulli. From there, some other molecular-based restaurants branched off of there, WD-50, French Laundry, Thomas Keller's restaurants. Thomas Keller also has a restaurant in New York called Per Se. And at Per Se, the bartenders started doing molecular treatments to their cocktails to kind of mirror their food program. So, lots of interesting effects. Basically, this science has been going on in candy for a lot of years, and typically relates to using food chemicals or equipment and techniques to change liquids into solids, spheres, jellies.
So that's
foams.
typically, that's how you deconstruct a cocktail.
So that was the first wave of cocktails that we saw were deconstructed cocktail. So in that case, there might be a cocktail that called for 3 liquids, and you would get part of it as a solid, part of it as a jelly, part of it as a foam or something like that. And then we started going to work on a reconstructed cocktail, something we could serve deconstructed, but then add something to it and end up with a reconstructed cocktail.
Awesome.
So this is Angostura Sugar Floss, a.k.a. cotton candy.
Angostura is bitters. Basically, if anybody says bitters, they're probably talking about Angostura.
Well, we soak sugar with Angostura bitters, and then we put it in a dehydrator and turn it back into a powder. Here we have lemon cordial pearls. This is modeled after the classic champagne cocktail, which calls for a sugar cube soaked in bitters with champagne and a lemon twist.
If you didn't catch it earlier, he was dropping into this liquid, and it's a hot liquid going into a cold liquid, creating the pearls. Correct?
Basically, it's a lemon cordial, a very lemony alcohol-based cordial, which we add a Japanese seaweed to, agar, and then put it into a very cold oil so that it will solidify.
Awesome.
And then here we have the reconstructed classic champagne cocktail.
That is awesome, and it's delightful. I had one earlier. I probably shouldn't have had the whole thing, but I did. Okay, to wrap this whole thing up, this cocktail movement, this isn't going anywhere. This isn't a fad. This is not something that you should be afraid of. This is something that you should try. Next time you're at a bar, consider moving beyond a vodka tonic. Consider moving beyond your typical drink. Try something completely new, or even better, try something very, very old. Thank you.